My father demanded $3,800 for my golden brother, but I refused, and a few days later, they started threatening. Hello, everyone. Before we get into this story, I just want to ask for your support. If you enjoy these kinds of personal stories, please subscribe, give a like, and turn on notifications. It really helps out since the channel doesn't get a lot of views, and most people don't even stick around to the end. Alright, now hello Reddit. I'm Ethan, 25, and if I'm being honest, I'm exhausted. Not physically, at least not more than the average guy who works 60-hour weeks in finance, but mentally, emotionally, existentially. And the wild part is, if you looked at my life from the outside, you'd think I had it all figured out. I've got a decent job in the city, a one-bedroom condo I save for on my own, and no real debts except my student loans. I work hard, I keep my head down, and I try not to cause trouble. But when it comes to my family, I might as well be a ghost. I have a younger brother, Liam. He's 22, still finishing college, and the sun practically shines out of his ass, if you ask my parents. I've been living this weird double life for years. One where I'm grinding constantly to make something of myself, and another where I go home and feel like the invisible man, just a pair of shoes by the door no one asks about. Growing up, it was always about Liam. Always. If I got an A, it was expected. If Liam got a B-, there was a freaking celebration. When I graduated with honors, they congratulated me with a good job and reminded me not to get cocky. When Liam passed his freshman year after nearly failing 2 courses, my mom baked a damn cake. Like, I'm not exaggerating. There was actual confetti. I remember when I got my first internship during sophomore year. It was at this boutique firm in Manhattan. I was pumped. I told my parents during dinner, expecting at least a nice work or some excitement. My mom nodded, said, "That's good, sweetie," and then turned to Liam and asked if he remembered to bring his guitar to school because they wanted him to play at Uncle Dan's birthday. And that was it. Like I hadn't just landed something I'd worked months for. I remember sitting there, fork halfway to my mouth, wondering what the hell I was doing wrong. But it didn't stop there. My dad, who's usually quiet, has this thing he says all the time. "Ethan, you're our rock. We don't have to worry about you." I used to think that was a compliment. Now it feels like a sentence. Like they've put me in some role where I'm only allowed to be dependable and silent. I'm not supposed to need anything, or feel anything, or screw up. That's Liam's territory. And Liam? He knows it. That's the part that stings the most. He's not evil or anything. He's charming, easygoing, the kind of guy who borrows your car and forgets to fill the tank. I've bailed him out of trouble more than once, and he always smiles and says, "You're the best, man," like I'm his personal safety net. One time he threw this party at my apartment when I was out of town, didn't even ask. Just used the spare key. I came back to empty liquor bottles and a burn mark on my coffee table, and when I confronted him, he laughed and said, "Come on, it was one night." My parents told me I should relax, that he's just young and figuring things out. Figuring things out with my furniture, apparently. This dynamic? It's like a disease in my family. Every family photo, every dinner, every phone call revolves around Liam. I can't tell you how many times I've sat in silence while they updated me on his classes, his friends, his band. I don't even know if my mom knows the name of the company I work for. She still thinks I do something with numbers. There was one time I tried to bring it up. I'd had a long week, was feeling particularly raw, and during a Sunday dinner, I said, "Sometimes it feels like you guys don't see me at all." My mom blinked and said, "What do you mean, honey? Of course we see you. You're always doing so well. We don't have to worry about you." That damn phrase again. My dad chimed in with, "You've always been steady, Ethan. That's not a bad thing." And then, no joke, my mom pivoted to asking Liam if he wanted more potatoes. It's like talking to a brick wall. Or worse, like screaming into a void and hearing your own voice bounce back, more hollow than before. Last Thanksgiving was the breaking point. I brought my girlfriend, Sarah, to dinner. We'd been dating about 6 months, and I thought maybe introducing her to the family would give them a chance to see me as a full person. Maybe they'd ask questions, maybe show some interest. Instead, my mom spent 20 minutes telling Sarah how proud she was of Liam for finding himself after switching majors for the 3rd time. At one point, she actually said, "You're lucky to be dating Ethan. He's stable. You don't have to worry about him." Sarah smiled politely, but later that night, she asked me if my parents even liked me. And honestly, I didn't know what to say. After Sarah left that night, I stayed behind to help clean up. I always do. Liam had disappeared upstairs, probably playing guitar. My mom was wrapping leftovers and humming, and I just stood there, dish towel in hand, feeling like I wasn't even in the same room. Like I was the help. I think what hurts the most is how invisible it all feels. There's no blow-up, no big betrayal. Just this constant, quiet erasure. Like being good at taking care of yourself means you don't deserve care. Like the price of success is loneliness. I'm not looking for pity. I just needed to say it somewhere. To someone. Because I'm tired of pretending it doesn't affect me. Back when I was in high school, I started realizing the imbalance wasn't just emotional, it was financial too. I was a good student, top 5 in my class, and knew early on that if I wanted to go to college, I'd have to figure it out myself. My parents weren't exactly rolling in money, or so they said, and the expectation was clear. If I wanted a degree, I had to earn it. So I did. I applied to every scholarship I could find. Local ones, national ones, obscure ones from foundations no one had heard of. I wrote so many essays my hands would cramp at night, but it paid off. I managed to piece together enough scholarships and grants to cover most of my tuition. The rest I covered by working. My freshman year, I was juggling classes with a morning shift at a campus coffee shop, a weekend job stocking shelves at a hardware store, and a late-night gig cleaning lecture halls. It wasn't glamorous, but it kept me afloat. I'd go to bed at 2 in the morning and be up by 7, sometimes earlier. There were nights I cried in the bathroom of the library because I was just so damn tired, but I kept going. Nobody at home really asked how I was doing. If they did, it was in passing. My dad once joked that I was training for the rat race early. I laughed because that's what you do, but inside it stung. Meanwhile, Liam was coasting through high school with average grades, skipping homework, and calling me nerd in a half-playful, half-mocking way. But when senior year rolled around, and he mentioned he might want to go to college too, the red carpet came out. My parents took him on tours of campuses I wasn't even allowed to apply to because we couldn't afford the application fees. They bought him a MacBook Pro for school. Mine was a refurbished Dell I paid for with my first few paychecks. When he finally decided on a small liberal arts college 2 states away, my mom called it his path to self-discovery. My path was survival. His was a journey. They paid his full tuition up front. No questions, no conditions. Just wrote the checks. And not just tuition. He got a new car, a dark blue Subaru with all the upgrades. They said he needed something reliable for out-of-state travel. I commuted for 3 years in a 2002 Ford Taurus that broke down every third Tuesday and had a door that didn't close all the way when it rained. And then came the allowance. $700 a month, every month, for living expenses, which in Liam's world meant beer, food delivery, and concert tickets. I once asked my mom if she could help cover a new textbook I needed mid-semester, and she told me to check if the library had a copy or maybe ask a classmate to share. The kicker, though, the thing I still can't shake, was graduation. My graduation. After 4 years of working myself to the bone, surviving on instant noodles and vending machine coffee, I walked across the stage with honors. I remember the day so clearly because of how empty it felt. No dinner, no party, not even a damn card. My mom said she was proud, but couldn't take the time off work to come. My dad said something about not wanting to make a big deal out of things, that the real celebration is getting a job, not a diploma. I went home that night to my shared apartment, heated up leftovers, and sat alone on the couch watching Netflix. That was my big moment. A year later, when Liam graduated, barely passing, mind you, they threw him a backyard party with catered food, a big "Congrats Liam" banner, balloons, the whole 9 yards. They invited all the neighbors, old family friends, even my high school English teacher. My mom was showing off his diploma like he'd discovered electricity. I was sitting there, plastic cup in hand, smiling politely, while people kept asking me what I was up to now, like I was the distant cousin who just dropped in. One woman even said, "I bet you're so proud of your little brother." I wanted to laugh and scream at the same time. And yeah, I know comparison is the thief of joy, or whatever that quote is, but it's not about comparing accomplishments. It's about effort. It's about what was expected from me versus what was handed to him. I had to be perfect to be acknowledged. He just had to exist. What makes it worse is that Liam isn't a bad guy. That's what screws with my head. He's not malicious or arrogant. He's just used to being the center of the universe. He assumes money will be there when he needs it. That praise will follow him like a shadow. And he genuinely doesn't get why I'm so distant sometimes. Once, he said to me, "You've always had your life together, man. I wish I was more like you." I didn't know what to say. Because yeah, I have my life together. But I built it from nothing. And some days, it still feels like no one noticed. After I landed my first full-time job out of college, I remember feeling this massive wave of relief. I'd been grinding nonstop for 4 years just to stay afloat, and now it finally felt like I could breathe, just a little. I got a position as a junior analyst at a mid-sized firm in the city. The pay wasn't incredible, but it was solid, especially for someone fresh out of school. I wasn't going to be buying a house or anything, but I could finally afford to stop counting pennies at the grocery store. I was proud of myself. I had worked for everything. No help, no shortcuts, no handouts. And now it felt like I was stepping into adulthood on my own terms. But then, almost immediately, my parents saw dollar signs. I had barely gotten through my first week when my mom pulled me aside after dinner and said, very matter-of-factly, "Now that you're making real money, it's time you start contributing to the household." I nodded. That made sense. I wasn't expecting to live there for free. I figured maybe a couple $100 a month to help with groceries or utilities. That felt fair. Then she hit me with the number, $900. 900. I actually laughed at first because I thought she was joking. But no, she was completely serious. She said, "You're an adult now, Ethan. This isn't a charity." And my dad, who rarely speaks during these kinds of conversations, just nodded and said, "Rent's not free in the real world." I reminded them I had just started working, that I was still trying to save, that I was paying off student loans. My mom shrugged and said, "You should have thought about that before choosing a private school, even though I went there on scholarship and never asked them for a dime." I tried to reason with them, told them I couldn't manage that much while also commuting, buying work clothes, and covering my own bills. I asked if we could find a middle ground. That's when they threatened to evict me. Not subtly, either. My dad said, "If you don't want to pay, you're free to find somewhere else to live." I remember standing there, stunned, trying to figure out how we had gone from me being the responsible one to suddenly being a financial burden. Eventually, they compromised and brought it down to $650. My mom made a whole show of it, like it was some gracious favor. "We're being more than generous, Ethan," she said. "Most people your age pay twice that in rent. Except most people my age aren't paying rent to their own parents after carrying themselves through college without help." What really pushed me over the edge, though, was Liam. He was still living at home at the time. No job, no school, no contribution. He'd sleep until noon, spend the day gaming, occasionally make a mess in the kitchen, and disappear for a weekend without saying a word. When I brought it up, asked why I was being asked to pay so much while Liam lived there for free, my mom waved me off. "He's still figuring things out," she said. My dad added, "You've always been the responsible one, Ethan. It's different." That line again. The curse of being the dependable one. It didn't matter that I was working full-time while Liam spent his days binge-watching Netflix and eating food I'd helped pay for. It didn't matter that I was putting aside money to one day move out, that I was helping cover utilities and groceries while they let Liam coast without lifting a finger. They saw me as the one they could lean on, squeeze, guilt, whatever, because I wouldn't explode. Because I didn't make scenes. There were nights I lay awake doing the math in my head, trying to figure out if I could afford to leave. I looked at studio apartments, did the budgeting, cut out every non-essential. And every time I got close to pulling the trigger, my mom would guilt me again. "We're a family, Ethan. Families help each other." But I was the only one helping. One time I came home from work and found Liam on the couch, blasting music, eating takeout straight from the container. I walked into the kitchen and saw 2 grocery bags I had bought sitting on the counter, half the stuff already gone. I asked if he could at least clean up after himself, and he looked at me like I was crazy. "Chill, man," he said. "Mom doesn't care." And he was right. She didn't. Later that night, when I mentioned it to her, she said, "He's going through a lot, Ethan. Why do you always have to make things harder?" I don't know what broke in me that day, but something did. Maybe it was the realization that in this house, fairness was never the point. Expectations were lopsided by design, and being the responsible one didn't mean respect. It just meant more weight on your shoulders. I wasn't their son anymore. I was their backup plan, their financial cushion, their silent partner in a family where only one kid mattered, and the other was just expected to carry it all without complaint. The final straw came 2 days before Liam's graduation. I was at work, buried in quarterly reports, when I got a text from my mom that just said, "We need to talk about the restaurant." No context, no greeting. I figured it had something to do with the dinner they'd mentioned planning for Liam's graduation, so I called her during my lunch break. She didn't even say hello, just launched right into it. "So, we put down a deposit for the restaurant," she said, like we were mid-conversation. "It's going to be lovely. Private room, dinner for about 25 people, cake, decorations, the whole thing. You'll need to send me the rest of the money by Friday morning. The balance is $3,800. I thought I misheard her. "Wait, you want me to pay $3,800 for Liam's graduation dinner?" "Yes," she said flatly, like it was the most obvious thing in the world. "You know how important this is for him. He's worked so hard." I laughed. I couldn't help it. "Mom, I'm not paying $4,000 for a party I didn't plan, wasn't asked about, and honestly wasn't even told about until just now." Her tone shifted immediately. "Cold. He's your brother, Ethan. This is what family does." "No," I said. "This is what I've been doing for years. Paying, helping, covering for everyone else. You didn't ask. You just assumed. And I'm telling you now, no, I'm not doing this." There was a pause. Then that sharp exhale she does when she's angry, but trying to play it cool. "Well, then you can at least get him a proper gift. We were thinking a new phone or a laptop, something useful, not just a gift card. At this point, I couldn't believe what I was hearing. It wasn't even a request anymore. It was a demand dressed up in fake politeness. I told her I wasn't buying a gift either. Not after the way they'd treated me for years. Not after I'd been expected to carry every financial burden while Liam got applause for showing up. That's when she snapped. If you're going to come empty-handed, don't come at all. No hesitation. No attempt to soften it. Just a flat-out ultimatum. I hung up without saying anything. I sat there at my desk for a long time, staring at the spreadsheet on my screen, but not really seeing it. I was angry, sure, but more than that, I felt this weird sense of clarity. Like everything that had been building up for years, the double standards, the favoritism, the financial manipulation, it had all funneled down into this one moment. They didn't see me as a person. They saw me as a wallet, a resource, a thing that was supposed to give and never asked for anything in return. I didn't go to Liam's graduation dinner. I didn't send a gift. I didn't respond to the follow-up text from my dad telling me to be a man and show up for your family. I stayed home that night and made myself pasta. Simple, quiet, and honestly, it felt better than any dinner I'd had with them in years. Because for once, I wasn't performing. I wasn't pretending. And that was the moment I knew I was done. Not in a dramatic, slamming the door kind of way. Just done. After that phone call with my mom, I spent the rest of the day stewing in a mix of anger and disbelief. The entitlement, the manipulation, the expectation that I'd fund a nearly $4,000 celebration for a brother who had never lifted a finger around the house. It was all so absurd. I almost thought I was being pranked. But no, this was just my family being my family. And then, somewhere between spreadsheets and coffee breaks, the anger started to shift into something else. Not calm, not acceptance, something colder, sharper. I realized they wanted a grand gesture. Fine, I'd give them one, but on my terms. That night, I sat down and started putting together a shopping list. I wasn't just going to buy Liam a gift. I was going to buy him the gift to end all gifts. I built it out on a custom PC site, top-tier everything. NVIDIA RTX 4080 graphics card, Intel Core i9 processor, 32 gigs of DDR5 RAM, a 2TB SSD, liquid cooling, RGB lighting, custom case, the whole works. I even added a 4K 240Hz monitor, mechanical keyboard, and a pro-grade gaming mouse. I didn't cheap out on a single part. I selected expedited shipping and arranged for it to be delivered directly to the restaurant where they were holding the graduation dinner. The total came to just under $3,800, the exact amount they tried to shake me down for. Poetic, really. The delivery was scheduled to arrive an hour into dinner, just long enough for the guests to be settled, food ordered, drinks flowing. I called the restaurant ahead of time and gave very specific instructions. The box had to be brought out like a centerpiece, placed right next to Liam, with a card that read, "Congrats, Liam. You deserve the best. Love, Ethan." I didn't include a gift receipt. That wasn't an oversight. When the delivery confirmation pinged my phone, I poured myself a drink and waited. I wasn't expecting a thank you. I wasn't expecting anything, really. But about 30 minutes later, my phone lit up with a barrage of texts. First my mom, long paragraphs, half praise, half guilt trips. Then my dad, asking why I'd wasted that much money on a toy. And finally Liam. Just one line. "Dude, this is insane. Thank you." I didn't reply to any of them. Because that wasn't the point. The point was, I gave them what they wanted, a gift, a performance, a headline moment to show off to their friends. But I also made sure they knew just how much it cost, and exactly how it felt to be used as a bank account. They got their show. I got my message across. And I did it without showing up. Without playing their game the way they expected. They wanted me to be generous? I was. Lavishly. But now it was clear. I was done being the dependable one who quietly swallowed the disrespect. That machine sits in Liam's room now. I'm sure it does everything he ever wanted and more. Maybe every time he boots it up, he remembers where it came from. Or maybe not. But I remember. And that's enough. I wasn't planning on going to the dinner. That was the original idea. Send the monstrous gaming rig, let the message land, and stay home. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized I needed to see it. Not the party, not the smiles, or the bragging. I needed to see them react to me showing up with nothing but myself. No gift in hand, no forced smile, no willingness to play along anymore. I wanted to see their faces when I didn't follow the script. So I got dressed. Nothing fancy, dark jeans, clean shirt, blazer. I didn't want to look like I'd made some grand effort, but I wasn't going to show up looking like I'd been dragged there either. I got to the restaurant about 20 minutes after the reservation time. It was one of those polished places that tries a little too hard with candlelight and acoustic covers of pop songs. As soon as I walked in, I spotted the hostess desk, told them the reservation name, and waited. She looked at the tablet in front of her, then back at me, confused. I think everyone's already here, she said. It looks like all the seats are taken. I blinked. I'm Ethan. I was told this was a family dinner for Liam's graduation. She hesitated. Yes, but there's no seat for you. I didn't even have to ask who'd planned it. I looked past her and saw the private room through the glass. Everyone was already seated. My dad was mid-sip from a wine glass. My mom was laughing at something a woman next to her said. Liam was at the head of the table with that smug grin he gets when he's soaking in attention. I saw the huge gift-wrapped box beside him. The gaming rig had arrived right on schedule. And then my mom turned, saw me through the glass, and her whole face dropped. She didn't wave, didn't smile, just stared. Then the door opened, and she came out, my dad right behind her. They didn't pull me aside gently or whisper like normal people with a shred of decency. My mom said it loud and clear, right there in front of the hostess and a couple of diners nearby. You're seriously showing up without a gift? I said nothing, just stared back at her calm. My dad chimed in, not bothering to lower his voice. Don't embarrass us, Ethan. If you came here just to make some point, you can turn around and leave. My mom folded her arms. We told you. If you don't have a gift, don't bother coming. I looked between them, then back at the private room where 25 people sat around a table where my name had never even been considered. It was surreal. I'd sent the most expensive, extravagant gift Liam would probably ever receive in his life. But they didn't see that. Or maybe they didn't care. Because what they wanted wasn't generosity, they wanted obedience. I turned to the hostess, who looked mortified, and said quietly, Looks like I won't be staying. Sorry for the trouble. And then I walked out. No scene, no yelling, just silence. It was the last time I let them make me feel small for not bending to their expectations. They wanted to humiliate me. They ended up doing it to themselves. I was halfway to the parking lot, trying to suppress the boiling frustration in my chest, when I heard the commotion behind me. A couple of voices, chairs scraping, the muffled cheer of surprise through the glass walls of the restaurant. I stopped, turned just slightly, and there they were, two delivery guys wheeling in a massive box on a dolly, wrapped in black and silver with a sleek, clean bow on top. Right on cue. One of the guys was holding a small envelope with my handwriting on it, and as soon as he passed it to the hostess, she glanced around, realized what it was for, and pointed toward the private room. I didn't move. I just watched it all unfold from outside. Inside the room, Liam stood up, eyes wide as the delivery guys rolled the massive box to his side. A few people clapped, others leaned in to see what was going on. I saw someone pull out their phone to film. And just like that, the entire energy in the room shifted. Liam read the note out loud, loud enough for the guests to hear. Congrats, Liam. You deserve the best. Love, Ethan. Gasps, applause, laughter. He grinned so hard I thought his face might split. My dad stood up, clapped him on the back. My mom wiped a fake tear from her eye. And that's when I saw it. Her turning to a couple of the other parents at the table, already doing damage control, shifting the narrative like flipping a light switch. That's our Ethan, she said, loud and proud, as if she hadn't just tried to shoo me out like a stray dog 5 minutes earlier. We always knew he'd come through. So thoughtful. That's just who he is. My dad, who not even half an hour ago had barked at me to go home, now stood with a wine glass in hand, nodding proudly as he said, He never disappoints. That's our son. They were basking in it. All of it. The gift, the timing, the performance they hadn't earned but were suddenly desperate to claim credit for. Watching them switch gears so quickly, you'd think they'd rehearsed it. My absence didn't matter anymore. My presence wasn't needed. What mattered was the appearance. The optics. Their golden son, the silent provider, had once again upheld the family image. And they were already milking it like it had been the plan all along. I just stood there, still and quiet, watching through the glass as they wrapped themselves in a lie they'd all agreed to believe. Not for me, never for me, but for how it made them look. I stood just outside the glass wall, still watching them play their parts like nothing had happened, like they hadn't tried to shut me out minutes earlier. The applause was still fading, and Liam was crouched beside the box, running his hand over the packaging like it was some sacred artifact. My parents were glowing, already fishing for compliments, basking in the attention of the guests. It was surreal, watching them rewrite the story in real time, casting me as the devoted brother, the generous son, the provider they could brag about. And that was when I stepped back inside. The hostess turned, startled to see me again, and I gave her a small, polite nod as I walked past her and through the open door into the private room. The room quieted almost instantly. Forks paused mid-air, murmurs died off. Every face turned to me. Liam stood up, surprised. My dad opened his mouth, probably ready to thank me like nothing had happened. My mom's smile twitched, then froze in place. I looked directly at the delivery guys, who were still waiting beside the box. "Hey," I said, calmly and without raising my voice. "I need to change the delivery address. I've actually decided this gift isn't staying here. It's not for him anymore." Silence. You could hear someone's fork clink against their plate in the back of the room. The taller delivery guy blinked, confused, but nodded. Yeah, we can still redirect it." "Where to?" I reached into my pocket, pulled out my phone, and read off the address of my best friend's apartment. Someone who'd let me crash on his couch when I was scraping by. Someone who'd never asked me for a dime, but always picked up when I called. "Send it there," I said. "It's my gift to myself." The look on Liam's face wasn't anger. It was confusion, like someone had just yanked the game controller out of his hands mid-match. My dad's mouth was still slightly open. My mom blinked once, twice, and then managed to whisper, "Ethan, what are you doing?" I turned to her. "Exactly what you told me to do. If I didn't have a gift, I shouldn't bother coming. But since I apparently had one, you let me in. You just didn't expect I might change my mind." I didn't yell. I didn't gloat. I just stood there, steady, while the delivery guys reloaded the box onto the dolly and started rolling it out. The guests were dead silent. No one laughed. No one spoke. As I walked past my dad, he said something under his breath that I didn't catch. I didn't care. I just kept moving. And then I left, calm, straight-backed, not looking over my shoulder. That was the last time I ever gave them anything they didn't deserve. That night, just after 10, I walked through the front door and barely had time to take off my shoes before it all exploded. My mom was waiting in the hallway, arms crossed, face flushed with a kind of fury I hadn't seen since I was a kid and accidentally broke a window with a baseball. My dad stood behind her, jaw clenched, silent, which was always his way of pretending he wasn't just as angry. And Liam? He came barreling down the stairs barefoot, red-faced, still dressed in his button-down from dinner, but with the sleeves wrinkled and his hair a mess like he'd been pacing the house for hours. The second he saw me, he started shouting, "Are you serious right now? What the hell was that?" His voice cracked halfway through, and he looked less furious than betrayed, like I'd kicked his dog or slept with his girlfriend. "That was my graduation. You humiliated me in front of everyone. He actually stammered. You planned that, didn't you? You planned the whole thing just to screw me over." Before I could even respond, my mom stepped in, her voice sharp and shrill. "You embarrassed this entire family. Do you have any idea how that looked? We had friends there, colleagues. Everyone saw you throw a tantrum like some spoiled child." I laughed, not because it was funny, but because the irony was too heavy to ignore. "A tantrum? I told you days ago I wasn't going to pay for the dinner, and you told me not to come if I didn't bring a gift. I showed up. With a gift. And when I saw the way you twisted it into something it wasn't, I took it back. That's not a tantrum. That's me drawing a line." My dad finally spoke, his voice low and firm. "You made us look like fools. Do you think people didn't notice? Do you know how many questions we got after you left? You made it about yourself." It was Liam's night. Liam started up again, hands in his hair, pacing behind my mom. "You've always hated that I got attention. You couldn't just let me have one night, could you? You had to come in and turn it into some dramatic scene so people would talk about you instead." I stared at him. "You got a graduation dinner I wasn't even invited to properly. You got a table with no seat for me. You got a lifetime of handouts, excuses, and applause for mediocrity. And when I finally stopped being the family ATM, I'm the bad guy?" My mom gasped, like I'd slapped her. "You're not an ATM." "Yes," I interrupted, voice level, "I am. That's what I've been to you. Since my first paycheck. $900 a month to live in my own room. Groceries, bills, guilt trips. I say no once, and you threaten to kick me out. Meanwhile, Liam's lived here for free, done nothing, and now he's shocked the world doesn't hand him gifts just for existing." Liam looked like he was about to charge at me, but he stopped when I turned to him. "I'm not responsible for what you've become," I said, calmly. "If you're entitled, lazy, and completely unprepared for real life, that's not on me. That's on them. They raised you like you were made of glass, and now you're mad that someone finally stopped pretending that's normal." The room was dead silent. My mom opened her mouth again, but nothing came out. My dad didn't move. Liam just stood there, breathing heavily, eyes locked on mine, stunned into silence not because I'd yelled, but because I hadn't. Because I didn't need to scream to mean every single word. Then I walked upstairs, shut my door behind me, and for the first time in years, felt completely honest with the people who raised me. 2 days. That's how long the silence lasted. 48 hours of tension lingering in the air like the humidity before a thunderstorm. No one spoke to me. No one knocked on my door. I thought maybe, just maybe, something had finally clicked, that they realized how far they'd pushed, that I wasn't going to play the role anymore. But no, turns out they just needed time to come up with the next ask. It was a Tuesday evening. I'd just gotten home from work, dropped my bag by the door, and sat down on the couch when my mom appeared in the doorway like she was trying to seem casual but couldn't quite pull it off. She didn't waste time on small talk. Liam's car broke down today, she said, like it was a tragedy on par with a natural disaster. The mechanic says it's going to cost more than it's worth to fix. I just nodded. That sucks. She hovered a bit, shifting her weight from one foot to the other, then added, he's supposed to start a new job next week, and we don't want him taking the bus. You know how unreliable that can be. I didn't respond. I just stared at her, waiting for the real point. Then she said it. We were thinking, maybe you could let him use your car. Just for a while. Until we figure something out. I almost laughed. Let him use my car. Well, she said quickly, it's not like you're going far with it. You take the train most days anyway, right? And Liam really needs reliable transportation right now. I stood up. You're asking me to give my car to Liam. After everything. It's not giving, she said defensively. Just helping. No, I said, clear and calm. I'm not giving him my car. I bought that car with money I earned. I chose it. I pay for the insurance, the maintenance, the gas. It's mine. If he needs a car, buy him one. My dad must have been listening from the hallway because he suddenly appeared, arms crossed, that disappointed look already settling in. Come on, Ethan. This is what family does. We help each other. I looked right at him. Really? Because when I was walking 3 miles to the train every day in college, no one offered me a ride. When I needed help with rent, no one reached for their wallet. Now that Liam needs something, suddenly you want to talk about family. He's your brother, my mom said, like that was supposed to mean something after years of favoritism and neglect. And I'm your son, I shot back. But you never asked what I needed. You just assumed I'd provide. They didn't have a response for that. Just silence and that familiar, stunned look like I'd spoken a language they couldn't understand. So I grabbed my keys off the counter and walked upstairs. Because no, they weren't taking my car. Not this time. Not ever again. The next morning started quietly. Too quietly. The kind of stillness that doesn't feel peaceful, just heavy. I got up, went through the motions, shower, breakfast, checked my email, and then sat in the kitchen with a cup of coffee I didn't even want. I knew something was coming. You can always feel it when the air shifts like that. Around 10, my dad came in. No hello. No preamble. Just walked in, squared his shoulders like he was about to deliver a court sentence, and stood across from me at the table. You made your position clear, he said. His voice was level, but I could hear the strain in it. You think we're bad parents. You think we failed. Fine. But if that's how you feel, then get out. I didn't move. I didn't flinch. I just looked at him and waited. He leaned forward, voice rising. You've poisoned this house with your arrogance. You walk around like you're better than everyone, like you're owed something for doing what any decent person does, work and pay your bills. You humiliated us in front of people we've known for decades. And now you won't even help your brother when he needs you? Then what good are you here? I didn't say a word. There was nothing left to argue about. Nothing left to explain. Then he slammed his hand on the counter. Get your things. Get out. And don't come back. I mean it, Ethan. Do not cross this threshold again. Still, I said nothing. Just stood up, walked upstairs, and started packing. I didn't take much. A couple of bags, my laptop, the important stuff. Left the rest. The house was quiet except for the sound of zippers and drawers and the occasional creak of the floorboards. No one came to check on me. No one tried to stop me. When I came back down, my mom was standing at the bottom of the stairs. She didn't say anything either. Just looked away like she couldn't quite decide if she was angry or embarrassed. I placed my house key on the table by the front door. That was it. No final speech. No drama. No slammed doors. I walked out of that house the same way I'd spent years living in it. Quietly, carefully, carrying more than anyone realized. And for the first time in my life, I truly understood I was never really part of that family. I was just useful. A role. A function. A name to drop when it made them look good, and a wallet to lean on when things got tight. But never someone they actually saw. And that was the moment I stopped trying to be. 6 months passed. Quietly. Peacefully. I moved into a small apartment across town. Not fancy, but mine. And for the first time in years, I had space to think, to sleep without clenched teeth, to sit with my thoughts without the constant weight of resentment. I didn't hear from them at all. No texts. No apologies. Just radio silence, which suited me fine. Then, one Sunday afternoon, I got a message. Short. Polite. Almost clinical. Would you be willing to meet for coffee? Mom. I stared at it for a while. Not because I didn't expect it, because I did. People like them never reach out unless they want something. I said yes anyway. Curiosity, maybe. Or closure. Either way, I told her where to meet me and gave them 20 minutes. We sat at a corner table. Just me, my mom, and my dad. Liam didn't come. She looked older. He looked tired. And they both carried that expression I'd seen my whole life. Disappointment, painted over with entitlement. My mom started with small talk. My dad didn't bother. After a minute, she leaned forward and got to the point. Liam's been struggling. He hasn't been able to land a job. No one's calling back. It's not his fault. The market is hard, and he's not as driven as you are. I didn't respond. I just waited. She glanced at my dad, then continued. We lost the house. The mortgage caught up with us. Your father's hours were cut, and we made some mistakes. And there it was. The pivot. We've been thinking, she said carefully, of helping Liam open his own cafe. Something small. We found a space, good location, low rent. It just needs some investment to get going. We'd manage it together as a family, but we're short on funds. I looked her straight in the eye. How much? My dad finally spoke. 35,000. Just to start. I didn't flinch. I reached into my bag and pulled out a folder. Set it on the table. My dad looked down at it like it was a trap. It's a contract, I said. Loan terms. I front the 35 grand. In return, you sign over the deed to whatever you still own of the old house as collateral. If Liam's cafe succeeds, great. He pays me back in full over 5 years. If not, the property becomes mine. Silence. My mom's mouth fell open just slightly, like she couldn't believe I was speaking in terms she didn't control. My dad stared at the folder like it had insulted him. You want us to gamble our home? He said slowly. I nodded once. That's how business works. You're not asking for support. You're asking for a loan. So either treat it like one, or walk away. My dad's face went red. You heartless little bastard. You'd really make us put our house on the line? After everything we've done for you? I didn't even blink. You mean like charging me rent while Liam lived here for free? Or asking me to pay for his graduation dinner? Or trying to give him my car? Or kicking me out for refusing to be your safety net one more time? He stood up, furious now, hands shaking. You're no son of mine. I stood too, calm as ever. That's your choice. I left the folder on the table and walked out of the cafe. They didn't follow. They didn't call after me. I never heard from them again. So that's it. That's how it ended. No big confrontation. No final apology. Just a simple truth. I was never what they wanted. Just what they needed. And when I stopped being that, I stopped being theirs. So tell me, what would you have done? Would you have given them the money anyway? Would you have walked in sooner? Or later? I'm genuinely curious. I don't think I was cruel. I think I was just done. Let me know what you think.